since you're here, let me remind you to like the video, subscribe, and share the content as well so that more people get to know about Bharata first. Now, the spate of targeted killings in the Kashmir Valley has sent alarm bells ringing. Security forces have pinned the attacks on hybrid terrorists, operatives who are not on any terror lists, but are radicalized enough to carry out a strike and then slip back into routine life. The situation in Jammu and Kashmir has taken a sudden and violent turn for the worse. Just last month, Union Minister Jitendra Singh made a statement that Jammu and Kashmir was fast returning to normal as the decades-long terrorism was on its last legs. Srinagar was declared terror-free by the police in August 2020, but now there has been a swell in the terror ranks. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze the targeted killings in Kashmir. Joining me on the program today are Mr. S.P. Vaid, former DGP, Jammu and Kashmir, Major General Ashwini Swach, retired defense and strategic expert. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. Mr. Vaid, let me start the program with you first. After abrogation of certain sections of Article 370 and 35A, there was a sense that militancy, separatism, and terrorism was coming down in Jammu and Kashmir, and especially in the valley. And several of the figures that came out, the data showed us that that in fact was true. But over the last few months, we've seen a spate of terror attacks. We've seen a different face of terror, if you can call it that, in Kashmir. How would you look at all these issues and developments?
Frank, as you yourself said, how things were changing for better after abrogation of Article 370. And in fact, by abrogating Article 370, you had pulled the land below the feet of handlers across. You see, they had invested for more than 3 decades, roughly 35 years, and millions of dollars. And the kind of effort and energy and investment they had made. So they won't let it go. The way things were fast returning to normalcy, there was tightening of terror funding because of action of the NIA and CBI. The Hurriyat was almost in disarray. There was no stone pelting. That calendars of the Hurriyat, after what we saw in post Burhan Wani, every day 50, 60 stone pelting incidents and counter sites, all those scenes are quite vivid in front of everyone in this country. So Pakistan handlers there realized that the situation is fast slipping out of their hands. You were talking of 50, 60,000 crore investment coming from, and one of the Islamic country, UAE delegation coming here. You had come out with the development push of the Honorable Prime Minister, the kind of new industrial policy, all those, the construction of AIMS, IITs, 7 medical colleges. Now, all this was pushing development in a big way in Kashmir Valley. The government under the Prime Minister wanted to change the face of Kashmir. And at the same time, grassroots democracy by holding elections to panchayats, panchis and sarpanchis. Then you were even thinking of ensuring return of the Kashmiri Pandits who had fled in 1990 because of fast changing situation and returning to normalcy. Then as per some reports, in the month of September, somewhere in Muzaffarabad, a meeting was held by ISI handlers with all the terror outfits with the direction that we must change the tactics because they were losing their cadres and men. I think after Operation All Out, which was started in 2017 when I was DGP, and I had a friend, Corps Commander, Mr. Sandhu. We started this Operation All Out. And after that, if you see, thousands of terrorists were eliminated, which is even going on today. and so many weapons they were losing. So they were finding it a losing game, engaging with the security forces, engaging with the police, paramilitary. So I think a strategy was, as per reports, devised there, change of Raniti, which they thought of, let's have a strategy of low investment, high return. You pick up small groups of 2 to 3 boys and who are sufficiently radicalized, ensure that they get the small weapon. Consignments of pistols are ensured to reach in Valley. And I think one of the person who was caught in Srinagar, who confessed, from him what 11 pistols were recovered. As per his interrogation, already some consignments had reached, one of them even having a number of 20 and distributed in Srinagar and Anantnag areas. Now, with this all background, you can imagine what Pakistan handlers, deep state must be thinking of. So they thought, why not go for this strategy of hybrid terrorism, by which you can, it's a minimum investment and high return, because you don't lose your men, you don't lose your weapons, which they earlier were losing, and you have a huge return. You see the return from their perspective, the huge terror, the sense of terror which is prevailing today, the sense of panic all over Kashmir Valley. Now, by this they are achieving fourfold. Number one, derail the peace process, which government of India was pushing. Derail the process of development, which Prime Minister was pushing. If you hit the labor, you are derailing the development, because ultimately all labor, everything involves labor. But it is a double-edged weapon. It also hits the local population, because in Kashmir, no one works. Everyone depends on the outside labor, even for their apples.
Absolutely.
Similarly, return of democracy, grassroots democracy. You hit the punches and sarpanches, you are derailing the claim of the government that grassroots democracy has been restored. Hit the J&K policemen, so they are involved in anti-terror operations. Hit the Kashmiri Pandits, minorities and outsiders. So that narrative that the population composition is being changed in Kashmir, which some of the political leaders did make noises about. Now, all this was aimed at to be achieved by this strategy, and I think this worked temporarily very good for the ISI, but we had seen this target killing even in early 90s, 89, 1991, and late 90s, when all Kashmiri Pandit and minorities were hit, and even some of the majority people who stood for India, who stood against the terrorists, were leveled as mukwirs, and they were also targeted. And all this we had seen. But problem here is many of these boys are not listed, and they are sufficiently radicalized. Now, what is happening is we actually need to have a multi-focused attention here.
Absolutely. That's something that we'll talk about, Mr. Vaid. We'll talk about, yes, absolutely. What can be done and what must be done? How do we counter this? General, let me bring you in, talking about this hybrid terror model and the cost really as far as the ISI and the Pakistani deep state is concerned. This works for them at every level, isn't it? Because the cost is very low, but the returns are very high. We've seen that the valley is completely shaken with what has been happening. The minority community is scared yet again. We've seen the visuals on television, and we've heard of the reports and read of the reports as well that they are planning to move out of Kashmir once again. What do we do in a situation like this?
Absolutely. See, Frank, no doubt, whatever DGP Vaid has spoken, I fully agree with him that the situation has taken a fast turn, and there is a sign of a panic in Kashmir Valley. Now, the point what we have to understand is, first, whatever he has said, I'll not repeat it. I only add 2-3 issues in this. One is Now we have to also see that our counter-infiltration grade has been very stable and very strong. You know, there are 10,000 Lashkar-e-Toba and Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists sitting in a launch pad and in the training areas in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And they are equipped with the most modern weapons which are left behind by Americans in Afghanistan. These are M4 and M16 assault rifles. So that is a different thing, that there is a ceasefire and our counter-infiltration grid is not letting these terrorists infiltrate. Now this strategy has changed. We have understood it because Pakistan was losing a battle. They are feeling it. They have lost the game, and hence they changed this tactics of hybrid warfare, low investment, high yield. And the point which is there is that all the youth which has been radicalized, they are being made use of it, given a pistol, and thereafter they go and shoot the target and thereafter mix up with society. No doubt, this is paying them a high dividend. Now, how do we counter? That's the main issue, which is a question which you asked it. Now, one thing is very certain. Somewhere we also were slightly relaxed in ensuring that such thing can happen. We have got this filler 4-5 months back, but we were slow to react. You know, the point is, this is an operation called Red Wave, which has been started by Pakistan, ISIN and Pakistan Army. 2-3 things which were happening. One is they were losing a battle in Jammu and Kashmir. The Kashmir policy was failing. The other thing is what was happening in Pakistan. They wanted to divert the attention from the people in Kashmir Valley, so that internal strife, a civil war type situation, financially almost on the verge of breaking down, that also attention can be diverted back to Jammu and Kashmir. The another thing which was there is that they managed to sell an idea to the public that after abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, the Indian government handled the situation very professionally. Things seemingly looks to be settled down, with the grassroots level democracy coming and almost peace and development taking a good shape in Kashmir Valley. But they solved this idea that their land as well as their jobs are at stake, and you will find the migrant workers and also Kashmiri Pandits coming back and settling down in Kashmir Valley. Their land will be given back. So this idea has been sold by Pakistan, ISI and Deep State, and this has hit. This has basically convinced the people, and that's why the radicalization of youth took place in South Kashmir in last about 5 to 6 months, almost 2 to 3 fold. And these are the people, these are the one which are available today, the youth which is radicalized for this hybrid warfare. Give them a pistol, give them a target, they hit it, and thereafter they mix up with the society. Now, this is a new, operation, which is a hybrid warfare. And how do we handle it? We have to have multi-pronged strategy. First of all, we have to ensure how do we make sure that the radicalization in South Kashmir stop. And this has to be done at all level, at the government level, at the security forces level. The second thing which we have to do is the Kashmiri Pandit, which has gone there on a Prime Minister rehabilitation special package, about 5,000 and more. They majority of them are trying to go back to Jammu. We cannot allow that thing happen. This will send a very negative message across in the nation as well as abroad, that we have failed completely. But they need to be given sufficient security. They were being targeted recently. So therefore, 2-3 things. One is that you should not post them less than a district headquarters. Give them a safety and security where they are working, and also where they are being housed in a transit camp. They improve the security of that place. That is what it is again required. Third thing is, go after this radicalized youth. You have to find out a mechanism to know it, which are the radicalized youth. Utilize the civil administration, punches, the DCs, and try to now find out who are these people and make use of their parents to bring them back or utilize them. It is not only these, also the overground worker and sleeper cell. They must be also need to be targeted. You see, the point is that the fish cannot survive without water, and so is the terrorist. They cannot survive without the help of sleeper cell, overground worker, and this radicalized youth. So we have to hit that and make use of civil administration. Go deep inside the public. Find out from Awam who are these people who are doing this hybrid warfare. Oh, the one thing very important which is emerging in this thing is that they are only hitting Kashmiri Pandit, migrant workers, or they find that someone can give the input to the security forces. They are not hitting tourists. They are not hitting tourists for one reason. They know it. If the tourists are bringing them a lot of money to the locals, if they do that, they will become unpopular. At the same time, the Amarnath Yatra is to take place from 30th June in both routes, Baltal as well Pelgaon. Unlikely they are going to hit Amarnath Yatra because this brings a lot of revenue to the common man in Kashmir
Sure.
Valley. So this is also a strategy of of ISI and deep state. So therefore, this we have to also now change our tactics. Our
Absolutely.
large operations have no meaning now. A small operation, small team, a real-time information, get into the at grassroots level, find out who is this radicalized youth, and also make sure the parents as well as if you find that they need to be eliminated, they so it be.
Okay.
Because in Kashmir Valley, the terrorists which are left in valley floor are only 125 to 130. At one point of time, they used to be almost 6 to 700. But the complete leadership of Lashkar-e-Toba, Jaise Mohammed, and Hizbul Mujahideen have been wiped out. And out of this, 60% is the foreign terrorists out of this 130. So the
Absolutely.
terror as such is very manageable. And the way the all-out operation, was going on, it looked as if in a year and a half, you will find that terrorism will be a case of a past in Jammu and Kashmir.
Points taken, General.
But this has not happened. And
Absolutely.
why this hybrid warfare has shaken us up. And we need to change this strategy and make sure that we defeat this hybrid warfare in the beginning itself, so before it becomes a sort of a confusion, as well as it affects the psyche of Kashmiri Pandit, which are the lifeline. If they don't come back, you'll find Kashmir is still not complete.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Mr. Vaid, since we are here now, and since we are talking about the Prime Minister's scheme to try and rehabilitate and repatriate the Kashmiri Pandits and the minority community back in Kashmir, if you look at the scheme, we expected many people to sign up. We expected several of the, original inhabitants to go back. There are, of course, a few thousands who have indeed signed up and gone back. But if you look at their conditions and if you look at the kind of places that they're living in, it's more like camps. So how can you expect the minority community to go back and live in conditions like that? That is one aspect. Secondly, let's talk about this point of how do we change things on the ground now? We know that terrorism always evolves. They are looking at this new hybrid model in place and have shaken and brought about panic really as far as the certain sections of the community in Kashmir are concerned. How do we counter this?
Frank, first coming to the question that resettling of Kashmiri Pandits under the Prime Minister's scheme. Not only that, in addition, there were also some of the Jammu-based employees who, because in Kashmir there are no scheduled caste people. So all scheduled caste vacancies in Kashmir are filled by people from Jammu region, because only Jammu you find the scheduled caste people. So they are also minority. They also get targeted. Now, I think roughly they also number about around 2,000, and Kashmiri Pandit implies one estimate said around 4,000 to 5,000. Now, there were a lot of flaws in this scheme. You had promised them to give them a secure accommodation, secure hosting, but none of them was actually ensured. I am told only handful of them stay in these colonies. Still, a vast majority of them stay in rented accommodation. I think roughly about, as per one report, about 2,000 or 2,500 have accommodation. Others are still staying in rented accommodation, which is very, very risky. They are soft targets. Similarly, scheduled caste implies from Jammu region, they have absolutely no scheme and no accommodation. So, number two, they're posting to remote area. You look at Rahul Bhatt, who was hit in Tehsil in Chadura. Rajni Bala in a village in Kulgam district. Now the bank manager Vijay Kumar from Rajasthan, I wonder who were their officers, how intelligent his officer is, who's posting him to a remote area in Kulgam, knowing pretty well that minorities are being targeted. Rajani Bala, I am told, I heard her husband on TV saying that we repeatedly met Chief Education Officer and the director, and they mocked and they did not transfer her. The day she was killed, only previous night she was transferred, and that order was put on the social media. Now, if officers behave like this, everything has not to be done by the lieutenant governor. So, can you imagine if I am in charge, I will book those officers. You can't. Now time has come to fix responsibility and accountability. What is that SHO worth the salt, or the district SP and the DM of that area, or the SDMs and SDPOs? If they don't know who the terrorists are and where are they going after killing, it means they are cut off from the ground. They have no link with the public. After all, this all, as General Sahab was saying, this cannot happen without the local support. So information comes from the very same people. For example, we had Jammu-based employees in 1990. They had similar threat as today Kashmiri Pandits or minorities are facing. And I remember the then government, I was a young SP that time, we made arrangement for Jammu employees in a manner that none of them could be hit. They were all working in secretariat, which was secured, or directorates, which were secure. They were accommodated in hotels which were guarded properly, and no one could enter without frisking. Now, you need to work out a scheme for Kashmiri Pandits and minority employees, Jammu-based or outside employees, in such a manner that they have a secure posting. They are posted in a place where a person with a weapon cannot enter without frisking. Similarly, they are accommodated in a proper place. Or you have a self-contained colonies where they have a provision store, medical shop, milk wala, everything, so that they need not go out. You need to think on these lines, which I understand cannot be created overnight. But another point, you carry them in escorted vehicles from a hotel to the secretariat. Now, something on those lines need to be worked out by the administration of today. But my personal view, I may not, though the government has taken a decision, but some people may disagree with me. I had initially opposed that they should be transferred to Jammu, because that would mean the terrorist, we are succumbing to the dictates of terrorists and the Pakistan. That is what they want, that they all move out of Kashmir Valley. But to take 2 steps ahead, sometimes you have to take a step backward also to win in a long term. I see nothing wrong in temporarily accommodating them, even in Jammu, till we get even upper hand on these bloody rascals. Coming to the now intelligence part, I think something is seriously wrong at the Thana level, something seriously wrong at the CID headquarter level, at the district police level. I understand it is a covert war. I understand it is a bloody a new strategy, but we need to come now. I think since September we are facing it, or October. I think a lot of months have passed. Now time has come that we also drop a counter strategy, and we need to hit them back in the same coin. So I think we had these kind of killings even in 90s, and ultimately police and army and security forces did overcome them. And today also we have much robust security grid. We can still do it. It is a temporary phase. I am sure this temporary phase will also pass off. Pakistan had drawn a list of about 200 people to be hit, and in that meeting which I was mentioning, and also directed these terror outfits like Lashkar, Jaish, and Hizbul Mujahideen to form small groups with local names, so that Pakistan does not come into picture. It looks as if it is a homegrown Kashmiri terrorist outfits, and everything is being done, though everything is being done by Pakistan, and their neck is in the noose of FATF, so they don't want any more problems for them. So this strategy they have drawn, but we now need to counter this. Now, just as General Saab was saying, so many boys are getting radicalized, so many hundreds of madrasas still running. I think we need a multi-pronged strategy. Now, don't leave it to only police and security forces. You have institutions of higher education. You find every day boys coming out with fake PhD degrees, cut and paste type. How many of them have done research, serious research, that why are the boys joining terrorism? What are the factors? And if those factors are identified, what steps have been taken by government to counter those steps? The factors which are leading young boys to join terrorism. Are we keeping an eye on these madrasas and all these centers where these boys are getting radicalized? They are using internet, I believe. I believe I had seen as DGP how and internet and social media was being misused. We must, I think India is a technological superpower. We need to come out with a solution that nothing of this sort material comes out of from Pakistan to Kashmir Valley.
Sure.
So these are some of my suggestions, and I strongly feel time has come for accountability, and time has come for fixing responsibility. We heads must roll right from top to bottom.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you on that. I mean, the situation is grave. There are some individuals inadvertently maybe putting some other individuals in harm's way and at risk, but we need to get that sorted, and accountability needs to be fixed at the end of the day if we need to bring about some kind of a solution to this problem. General, coming back to you now, is Pakistan also desperate at the moment? Because several questions are being asked of the Pakistani army. Several questions are being, thrown at them by the public as well, with regards to Pakistan's state from an economic perspective and where Pakistan is really headed. So are the domestic compulsions of the Pakistani deep state pushing them to go after certain individuals in the valley so that the people get diverted from the problems domestically and focus on Kashmir?
Absolutely. See, Frank, I told this issue in the beginning also. There is no doubt. You see, today Pakistan is in a political crisis, and you find almost civil war type situation occurring. And financially, they are, in such a position that the nation can break anytime. Now, they have you can say, a debt of $186 billion. They need $4 billion every year just to pay the interest of the loan which they have taken. The rupee has fallen down 40% in last 2 years. The inflation is double figure. The imports are ever increasing, exports are dwindling down, and no investment is coming. In this, the terrorism and the law and order situation is going from bad to worse. And the chances of that financial action task force not only keeping them in a grey list, but chances are also they can downgrade them in a blacklist. And at the same time, they are not getting any loan from IMF, World Bank until unless they restructure their tax method or by reducing subsidy. So the government is becoming very unpopular. And in this phenomena, what has happened is first time in the history of Pakistan, the army is also targeted. The fingers are being raised on the army, and especially by Imran Khan. So today, army is also standing in a glass house, and this is the time when they needed something to divert that attention. And as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, they almost lost it out, because after 5th August 2019, when Article 370 and 35A was abrogated, a lot of homework was done by Government of India, and they surprised the whole world the way they roll out this plan, and they succeeded. So the Kashmir was almost peaceful investment taking place. Law and order was under control. And this is the strategy which Pakistan thought is the right time now to divert the attention of the people of Pakistan and also international community to Jammu and Kashmir. And they came with this hybrid warfare. It is a red wave operation which they started, as the DGP was telling, it was conceptualized in September last year. Now, the issue which is coming is when they diverted the attention of everyone, where what we found wanting after rolling out or abrogating Article 370, 35A, conducting grassroots level elections in district development council, panchayat election, we became overconfident and we became relaxed. We thought we have won the war, but we haven't won the war. We won the battle. The war was still on, and that is where the things have gone wrong. What DGP was trying to bring out, they were a plan as to how all these Kashmiri Pandits, which have been now come back, or those migrant workers from Jammu, those who were working, we should have ensured that they get a safe environment. They are not posted at lower headquarters other than district headquarters, and their transit camp has to be well protected with all facilities. We failed in that. Second thing is, our intelligence system failed. Did we know that this thing was coming? We didn't realize it. This hybrid warfare has hit us badly. Now we realize that this can happen. If you see the history of Jammu and Kashmir, it is not a new thing. Initially, in 90s, there was a mass movement. Then they started after Kargil Wall, a Fidain has started off. A Fidain attack by the terrorists was a cause of concern. And then thereafter, once the situation again stabilized, again after Burhan Wani, you find stone pelting became a very dangerous phenomenon. And now this hybrid warfare. So terrorism has been changing its shape and size as per the requirement. But now, having said that, the hybrid warfare has to be defeated. We cannot, sit on the fence and see things going from bad to worse. Now, as far as Pakistan is concerned, I suppose they need to be made to pay. Now, the question asked is, how do you make them pay? And there are 3-4 things. One is you diplomatically isolate Pakistan, bring out internationally as to how much the Pakistan is involved in terrorism. Today, Financial Action Task Force can downgrade them. The World Bank and IMF also will not give them loan. Bring out this issue publicly, diplomatically, so that there is a huge pressure. Now, another very important thing is, which I personally not in agreement, is what ceasefire which we have done in January 2021. Now, this is helping Pakistan, not helping us. The reason is, why did they do it? Because they wanted to focus that time to their western side in Afghanistan, and they wanted this pressure to go, and that's how they agreed. But what has happened is, now we cannot fire in the Pakistan, and there are launch pad and training areas which are brimming with the terrorists, and they are enjoying the fruit of terrorism without getting any hit from India. Now, right, in case this ceasefire is abrogated, you find then our artillery, 155 Bofors, our drones, as well as the Rafale aircraft which are there, can hit those transit camps as well as their training areas. And this cannot be countered by Pakistan, because Pakistan is financially very weak. They do not have a muscle power to reply us back. Hit them hard what we were hitting earlier, and Pakistan used to raise hands. They are incapable of responding in the same, you can say, sanctity. So there also, in case we feel that Pakistan is not coming to the terms which India wants, you right, abrogate this ceasefire, hit them hard. That is a requirement of the day, because sure, Pakistan otherwise will not accept, anything which India is telling peacefully. Now, this Absolutely. Is another. Third and most important thing is, we have to take the Awam with us. Somewhere the gap has increased between Awam and those who are ruling them. And that is why this radicalization of youth is now 2 to 3 times more in South Kashmir. We have to stop that. Make use of the parents, ensure that the civil administration go at the ground root level. And also, we have to draw a new roadmap, especially security forces also. Our system of functioning has to change. Our operations, not only against the terrorists, which are residual about 130, but also against these radicalized youth. How do we go and either neutralize them or bring them back to the mainstream? So that is also very important thing. Right. And fourth thing is that ensure that do not be overconfident about Amarnath Yatra. that which is a major exercise which will be there after 30th June, both Baltan and Pelgam. Any hit on Amarnath Yatra will have a very adverse effect, not only nationally but internationally. So this also you should guard, because once hybrid warfare is taking place, you never know what will be the site it will take once the Amarnath Yatra. So again, be very, very careful. Take all measures. Don't take any chance as for Amarnath Yatra. And the last thing which I feel is that security forces also along police, along the civil administration, change the way we were functioning, because this is a new warfare. This is a new threat which is emerging. The old tactics and weapons and the system will not function. So we have to be more closer to our get public and government relation again reshape, win the hearts and mind, and isolate these radicalized youth and try to bring them back to the mainstream. Look after these madrasas. Make sure either they are closed or they do not basically speak anti-India sentiment in the minds of the youth.
Points taken. All right. Time to get quick closing comments from both my panelists with the best way forward. Maybe in 30 seconds each, starting first with you, Mr. Vaid.
Frank, number one, first priority should be to protect minorities and outsiders. That is, whatever is required to be done must be done. That's my first thing. Number two, during my time, I had introduced police community partnership groups. Each police station, each subdivision, each district SP. I think we need to revive. There is something lacking between the public and the police. 90% of the information used to come through the police. Something is lacking. I think the coordination part and a close rapport with the people. After all, terrorists come from the society, merge in the society. Information will also come from the society. So that is very, very important. Third, now it is the time of accountability. As I already mentioned, responsibility has to be fixed, whether it is a concerned CO, concerned district SP, concerned subdivisional district magistrate. So everyone must have in his area ensure that no such thing happens. Fourth, involve all wings of the government. Don't leave it to only police and security forces. After all, every department has its role and they all draw salary. Not only police get salary. Education department has its role. Let it play. New education policy, let it play the role. Then involve social, religious and political organizations. I think everyone has a role. It is a fight which we have to fight together. And last, I think don't leave hope. We will overcome this. It is a temporary phase.
Absolutely. And General, close the show for us with your quick concluding remarks.
Yeah, Frank, 2-3 issues. Whatever DGP has said, I fully agree. 2-3 more issues. See, the real-time inputs we were getting from police are not coming now. The reason is simple. The earlier that, against the foreign terrorists, the public is ready to give you input. But when it comes to a radicalized local youth, the inputs are coming very less. And that is very important. The gap between Awam and the administration has increased. And that has to be plugged. How do we ensure that we get a real-time input before the operation takes place? Second thing is, how do we ensure this radicalized youth come back to the mainstream? That is a challenge that must be done at the earliest. Then the investment which is coming from abroad, internationally, Saudi Arabia, UAE are interested. They are watching us. And if they, see the situation is deteriorating, they will not invest. Now, try to ensure that we bring this normalcy as soon as possible. Till the time normalcy is not there, all these development projects can halt for some time, because otherwise they will become unnecessary target, and then it will send a wrong message across the world. Third thing which needs to be done is that we have to have more coordination and cooperation between the security, all the organs of security forces, whether it is Indian Army, which is RR, then Jammu and Kashmir Police, as well as the paramilitary, and also the civil administration. They should work in unison. The point is the gap has started increasing, which shouldn't have happened, because we were working like a well-oiled machine. All of us were together. But somehow,
Absolutely.
however, there is a gap is seemingly, that's how the input and information is not traveling. And the last but not the least is the input must not only be passed vertically, it should be shared horizontally. If you do not able to give a real-time input to each other, then you will find it that input has no meaning. So I suppose
Absolutely.
a multi-pronged strategy is the requirement of the day. India as a nation has a capability and capacity to defeat this a new shape of terrorism called hybrid warfare, but we all have to get together and defeat it at the earliest, so that confidence of Kashmiri Pandit and the public is again retained in government of India.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. A wonderful discussion on this very important issue. Thank you, Mr. Vaid, and thank you, Gerald Sawach, as well for joining us with your very valuable inputs. Well, that's it on this edition of Big Picture. But before I leave, of course, let me tell you that this is a very important issue. We've seen that more than a dozen and a half minority individuals have been targeted and killed over the last 6 months or so, or 5 months or so in the valley. This year alone, close to about 20 plus individuals have already been killed, and there is a sense of panic and fear within the hearts and minds of the minority community in Kashmir. The conditions that they have been taken back in, as far as the Prime Minister's scheme and many other schemes too, have not been met. They have been put up in camps. They have not been really taken back to their original places of inhabitation. And these are several of the issues that they face. And why would any more people want to go back to Kashmir to live in camps? That needs to change. The situation on the ground needs to change. We need to make Pakistan, who is orchestrating all these activities, hit them hard where it hurts, and ensure that they are dealt a befitting blow. The Pakistani army is taking certain interest in what's happening in Kashmir yet again and trying its best to try and destabilize the valley, because the Pakistani army, for the first time in history, is facing the heat back home for the economic problems and other domestic issues within Pakistan itself. This is something that we need to leverage, take it up at an international level, further tighten the screws from a diplomatic point of view as well, to ensure that we keep Kashmir safe, sound, and secure. Before I go, let me remind you once again to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the content as well, so that more people get to know about Bharata First. Also, Bharata First has played a big role and a crucial role in UPSC preparations, and several of the candidates that I've mentored, in fact, over 100 candidates that I've mentored over the last 2.5 months have made it through to the UPSC CSC 2021 list. You can be one of them as well. Ensure that you log on to kc.bharatafirst.com or download the Bharata First app and enroll for any one of the courses there. There are over 90% discounts going on at the moment, thanks to the support of a few good people. So ensure that you log in and register today, and you could be the next one to crack that big UPSC CSC examination. Enroll now and get mentored by me, and we will ensure that we learn happily and take one step closer to reaching that elusive dream of many hundreds and lakhs of individuals from across the country. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.